I'm CK. In my weekly marketing email from jamco.com, they talked about a new kit. This is a temperature ohms light kit, skill level 2. It's from a company called Chaney Electronics, who I'm not familiar with, so that'll be fun to get into. It doesn't look like it has a whole lot of components. It's got a couple of passive components and looks like one microcontroller. So we'll put it together, see what it actually does, and see if we learn anything. And as always, I hope you enjoy the video. The package, Chaney Electronics Inc. Temperature ohms light kit, skill level 2. Looks like it's got a microprocessor, a display, some discrete components, 9-volt plug there, and some test leads. Electronic components in this kit are solder plated. It contains lead and therefore don't put components in your mouth. Always wash your hands, yeah. Students under age 13 should not build this kit. Soldering requires adult supervision. I agree with that, but students under age 13 should not build this kit? Well, I was soldering before I was 13. If you are going to supervise them, and you feel confident, let your under 13-year-old kids use this kind of thing. I mean, come on. There are some precocious kids who may be very good at this kind of stuff at an early age. Some aren't, and that's great too. But if they feel confident and you feel confident, let them play. I mean, what's the worst that goes wrong if you're there with them? I'm serious. I'm sorry. I'm a little angry about that. So let's see, we've got some wires, a bare wire to hold the display in place. Okay, you decided not to include screws. Okay. Various bits and pieces, how to identify some things. Here's the picture again. Again, this is Rev 10511, so this may be from all the way back in 2011. I wonder why they listed this as new. Maybe they just got it. Oh, here's a good schematic. Connect it, and we'll see what it does. Okay, we do have a photo detector, photo light, and ambient temperature sensor. That's good. So we've got, where's my pointy thing? We've got the schematic. Here's the battery. Here's the first IC, which is a PIC 16F88. I don't know what that is. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's IC2, and IC2 is a 78L05. That's a 5-volt voltage regulator, so it's taking the 9-volt and dropping it down to 5 volts, probably for the IC. Yeah, it's going into the IC. And then we'll go into IC1, which is the PIC 16F88. Again, I believe that's probably a microcontroller, and that's, or a display driver, because it's feeding directly to the display. And the probe leads come in here, come into these resistors, go to pin 5 of the display for whatever reason, and then go to pins 1 and 18, and here's where the photoresistor is, so that's directly going in to pin 18, and pin 17 is also getting fed from the probe, as well as pin, well no, that's just powering it. So that's it. And here's the program theory of operation, and the PIC program, port B on the PIC, which is the microprocessor, or as they say, programmable IC. So it tells you how it works and how it's programmed. And here we have foil pattern of the PC board, which is all nice, and then troubleshooting hints. So it looks pretty detailed. And let's take a look at the actual componentry itself. There's the pick. Oh, it's a Motorola part. Huh, okay. Got some test leads for our probes. 9-volt battery snap cap. Then we've got the other components. I don't think there'll be many surprises in here. Packaged by Whadda. Okay, good job, Whadda. Here's our photoresistor. And this, I believe, is our thermistor, our temperature sensor. Where is that supposed to be? Thermistor, is it TR? Yeah, that's got to be our thermistor. The temperature sensor. Here's the voltage regulator. And one LED. I believe it's yellow. They describe it as yellow. I'm not going to take it out of the paper right now. Now let's look at the circuit board. Chaney Electronics. Oh, it looks like they already, they already soldered the display board on. And they did do it a while ago because, well, this is not a great solder job, number one. Number two, the solder's already looking icky. Gotta get that little piece of, well, there's extra solder all around. I think they probably did that because the pitch on this component here, these pins, is so close that they didn't think beginners would be able to do it, which is okay. My top camera is looking very dark. Is it looking dark to you? I'm moving my light around. Probably driving you crazy, but that's okay. I can drive you crazy because you can always skip. So that's all the bits and pieces. I will get the soldering iron heated up and we'll put this thing together and see what it does. Let's get our stuff going together. Put it together versus, based on the layout. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Let's grab out some resistors first, and I want to check their values and tolerances. So these are what, 1, 0, 3, 10K. So they are 10K, 10.95, which is not bad. That's good tolerance. These are gold tolerance. So it should be within, what, 5%? 9.8, that's a little low. But I'm not going to mess about or fuss about with that too much. So let's see. Those are the 3 10Ks. They go in R1, R3, and R4. And the board doesn't have any particular markings. There's no stenciling on the board, which is interesting. In fact, it's actually annoying because it makes it a little harder to see, obviously, where things go. But these go in R1, R3, and R4, as I said. So we'll see where R1 is. R1 is right here, and the first thing we learn is don't bend the leads right up against the body because they need a lot of, they didn't use a great template. I don't think they probably even templated this. I think they just grabbed a raw program and said, let's just tell it what to do. Put some holes here, put some things there. Now we're going to do R3, which is here. Again, just be careful because since you don't have any indication of what the component holes on the board are, you got to match what's on here to there. So I've got those 3 on. I'm going to solder them to see how well this board takes solder. And again, it's single layer, so we ain't flush cutting any of this. Okay. Working okay. Now I'm going to trim these leads, and because this is single layer and kind of old, I'm just going to trim like right there, if you can see that, if you can see what I'm doing, above the solder ball, just on the lead, because I don't want to accidentally pull up the solder pad, which definitely can happen. I have done it myself. So those are those three, the 10Ks. Now, what else do we have? We've got R2, which is a 1K. Oh, wait, where is it? Got a 1K and a 120. Here's the 120. I put the 120 in first because that's got, as you can see, brown, red, brown. So that's a 1, a 2, and 1, 0. That's how you read that particular color band. Even though, again, with everybody having access to inexpensive meters and online calculators and so on, I would not. Memorizing color bands like I did in the 60s and still have in my memory is not something I expect anybody to do. Again, I've got this thing if you want to learn but also practice. This is a color band calculator that I put together a couple of years ago, and you can say brown, red. Oh, okay, I did that wrong. Brown, red, back up one. Brown, red, black, and get what you need. And again, I'll post a link to that calculator, and it handles, as you may be able to see, it handles both 4-band and 5-band resistors. It's a good teaching tool. So this is the 1K one. It's a good teaching tool. And memorizing tool if you want. R2 is in the middle. They didn't even, it's funny. They don't have the stenciling or silkscreening on the board, but they still don't have things in order. It's I'm sorry, that's kind of lazy. I'll solder those guys in a bit. So where does the photodiode go? It goes right there where it says CDS, right next to the resistor pack. And it doesn't matter which way it goes, it is not sensitive. I'm going to raise it a little bit above the board just so I can play with it a little easier. And since I am raising it up a little bit, I'm going to solder that right now and solder the other resistors I just put on at the same time. And what do we have next? We're going to put the thermistor on next, and I'm going to raise that up too. I'm not going to be able to raise it up too much because the display's in the way, but I'll raise it up a little bit so I can better demonstrate what it's doing with temperature. You can put it flat on the board if you want. I mean, this is just, I'm doing it as part of learning how this particular thing works. I'm going to put the socket on right now. I'm not going in a particular order, and they want the notch side, pin one side, going this way. Again, with nothing on the board to indicate, you've got to look at the picture. And I'm going to solder one pin, one leg, while supporting it with my pinky finger behind it. Even though it's not, these holes are haloing. This is not a great circuit board. Golly. Okay, now it's going to stay in there. I'm going to go ahead and quickly do these other pins. Now I'm going to zoom in here and let you see what I'm talking about, because it's something you're going to need to be aware of here. Let me see if I can bring this even closer. There we go. So if you can see on, let me find it. This one and this one, the solder didn't completely go around the pin because the holes in the circuit board are too big. So it doesn't create enough contact area to be able to bridge, and since it's single layer, the solder is not wicking down in as it does on a multi-layer through-hole plated board. So just be careful and double check these socket joints. I'm going to get my head in the shot as I look directly down on this to make sure I get it unhaloed. And really what that means is you're just going to leave your soldering iron on it a little bit longer, and you're probably going to use more solder. Just got to make sure you don't bridge between the pads. But this is really, yeah, this is an archaic board. I'm surprised they're selling this. I'm going to talk to them about this. Man. Okay, I think I got them all good. I'm not happy with the way that solders out, but it's what we get. Now we'll put the voltage regulator in. Where does the voltage regulator go? Voltage regulator goes all the way over here. And since there is no diagram on the board, I probably didn't zoom the camera out, did I? I didn't. Let me zoom out a little bit. As you can see, it goes here. There are the two pins for the battery snap cap, and it goes next to those. And right next to that goes the capacitor, electrolytic, and the plus side, the long side, goes nearest to the display. And now we'll put the LED, which goes all the way over yonder. Oh wait, no, I'm not going to do that. First I have to do jumpers. They gave us little wire because 1, 2, 3, they're jumpers because of the way they were laying out the board. They want to get the signal from this side, these pins of the chip, over the display, and they can't just cross because they've already got all these going. So we're going to have to jump from here to here across the top of the board. Now, I'm not going to speak ill of somebody else's circuit design, but I think it's very likely, or at least with modern board layout software, you can avoid doing this by doing different pathing. But I didn't have to do this one, so again, 2011 is 10 years or 14, maybe 14 years ago, but we had real good tools available 14 years ago too, so I'm a little surprised. And again, just a bare wire jumper going from hole to hole because we're just pretending to be dual layer. Bend this down about right. It's actually not right because I didn't bother measuring it, but I don't care. I'll just feed it through. solder those, and again I expect it's going to halo like mad on these because that wire I just put in is very thin and those holes are very large diameter. So I'm actually going up to my 0.41 solder instead of my 3 to maybe ameliorate some of that haloing. And I bridged those 2 wires. Of course I did. So we take our handy dandy solder sucker out, heat the solder up, slurped it up, and that fixed that, I believe. I'm making sure we're not bridging to that trace that's right next to it. I think we are. Golly, this is why we like modern boards. There we go. Because the solder had bridged across to that trace, and we didn't want that, and I think it's still bridged on this one. Ah. I'm going to have to, and this got, the hole completely came unsoldered when I did that. Let me do this one again. And I guess that's right. Okay, so I'll trim these leads off. Oh, why don't I solder these other fellas while I'm here? So that's those fellas. And now we'll do the LED. Let me check my camera time. Okay. So I'm going to clip this out of its paper, making sure we can double check where the flat side is, and we can. And I'm going to use my meter in continuity mode, which makes little beeps. Oops. Give it some power, and yeah, that lights up yellow. Now we're going to put it on the board with the cathode side, the short leg facing, I'll show you in a second. Man, this doesn't even go through the holes. The shoulder on the LED leads is not letting it go through the holes, so I can't put it flat on the board. Well, that's kind of not great. And then they say use bare wire to hold the display down, put it through here and solder it right here and here. I'm not going to bother with that. We'll just rely on the connector. I'm not going to be using this long term. That's for sure. So let's do the battery next. And goes over here next to the voltage regulator, which makes sense. And we'll poke that through there. Positive lead, red wire goes near the top. And we'll put the negative wire through, or ground, whatever you want to call it. And it's not sticking through for me, so I get my locking tweezers and lock it to the other wire to hold it in place while I solder it. Now we'll do what's probably going to be the most challenging part of the kit, which is soldering the probes together. my pen vise out for this. Nip off some wire. Slide this back down over the wire so we can get it in place well. Then I'm going to put the wire through. Let me twist it a little bit. Put the wire, twist it a little bit more. Put it through like so. That's the way I want to do it. And we'll again clamp it. Oops, and it fell out, of course, because that's what wire does. We'll use the locking tweezers again. There, that's the black one on. Sliding these back on is easier. Just stuff the jaws full of something. That'll have the little handle tucked back, and that's all good. And now I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to turn the cameras off for that one because they're almost out of battery. I'll be back in just a second or two. Actually, one cross dissolve for you. I put the red probe lead on, same as I did the other one. Now the red probe lead will go through here. So while I was off camera, I looked at the build instructions, and it does have a copyright date of 2011 through 2023. So they clearly updated the instructions relatively recently, but the circuit board hasn't been spun, hasn't been modified since 2011, and I think that's a real shame. They may have been stuck with a lot of backstock that never got sold, so they didn't want to respin it, but this is a mediocre kit. I'm going to just be blunt. You know, you can see, the holes are not right here either. You can see on my channel I've done a lot, 100 other kits from people like Vellum and Whadda that are much better quality than this. So I will be direct and say so far I do not recommend this kit. So that's where we are. Got our two probes, got our battery snap cap. I've got a 9-volt battery hanging out here. Let me back off a little bit. That I've tested for, I still got to put the IC in. That would have been silly, even though it won't be the first time that I powered something up without the IC in it and said, why isn't it working? And we'll put that in, making sure the notch on the board matches the notch on the socket. There, that's all in. Now the grand reveal. We'll turn on, we'll plug in the battery. Chaney Electronics, okay? Temperature 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Light 99%. So let's cover up the light sensor. Let's cover up the light sensor, which I'm doing. And it doesn't seem to care. So let's do something more dramatic. We'll heat up the thermistor a little bit. There it goes. It's going up, 83, 88, 90, 100, 102. So that's working fine. The light is not. I'm going to look at where the traces are going. See if anything is mis-soldered. No? Okay, we've got a bridge here. Okay, there's a bridge there. That's probably messing it up. There. Bridge is removed. And there we go. Now the light changes. Let me turn this off. Light percentage changes, and now you can see it's already dropped down to 79% by turning the desk light off. I'm going to zoom in again. Shown at 83%, so I will put the shroud over it again, and it goes down to, what is that, 3%, and turns the LED on. So that's it. I was just sitting copying the files for this video, and I realized I hadn't done the ohms side of things because I was I was kind of disappointed in the rest of it. So let's see. This resistor is 0.999. So it's a 1K resistor according to the fluke. According to this thing, oh god, these alligator clips are pretty bad. Man, the supplied alligator clips don't do a real good job of alligatoring. Oh no, resistance 1.027 ohm, that's fine. Let me grab another one. Here's a 1/4 watt. And that's 2K, 2.014, and on the fluke it registers as 1.9, so they're both within tolerance of each other. So that's 2 resistors, and it shows you that it seems to do calculate resistance just fine, so that works very well. So I just wanted to make sure we were complete, so I had to drop that in there. Back to the conclusion. Light coming back on. That's it. It's not in terms of what it does, it's pretty good, and it does explain the operation and how the chip is programmed. The board itself is archaic, and I think will cause more frustration to a youngster than not. My recommendation is, if you're working with youngsters and learning or running a classroom, quite frankly, don't get this. Go look at the Velleman selection, also on jamco.com. Velleman or Whadda, W-H-A-D-D-A. You can find things that are from this decade and much better quality. Again, the programming and the knowledge that they impart is good. The hardware itself is pretty bad. But I hope you enjoyed the video.